Hey dudes, what's happening? So I tried to film a video earlier, but as soon as I clicked record on my camera, my laptop decided it wanted to do the new Windows 10 update for me, which I didn't want it to do, and it took 3 hours and I had work in 3 hours, so that literally had to be abandoned. I'll insert a clip of when my laptop decided it didn't want to cooperate. No. Come on, Izzy. It says restarting. Okay, so anyway, in this video, I am going to be ranking the season 7 auditions. And there wasn't auditions in season 7 to make A Troupe, but there was to be the alternate. And I have made a video straight after I watched the episode. I was like reacting or reviewing season 7 episode 3 and the decisions made in it, like the dance captain decision and the alternate's decision. But my opinions have changed since then, and that video was more just based off of my opinion and just like, oh, I like this person, so I would have liked to see this. This is more in terms of what actually would have made a good alternate. I'm reviewing it quite objectively and not taking my opinion into account. So yeah, even if you've seen that video, the opinions shared in this one are going to be different, so I hope you enjoy. First off though, the first thing I want to say is that I think the role of an alternate really does need to be flipped on its head in how it's perceived, because it's always seemed like as a bad thing if you get chosen to be the alternate, but I think it should be seen as a massive compliment, because I think the alternate has to be a pretty versatile person. You've got to be trustworthy to pick up the dances really quick. You've got to learn everyone's different roles. You've got to be strong in all areas. But to be honest, I never really know what the premise is for an alternate, whether it is just given to the weakest dancer or whether it's given to someone who they think is the most, like, I don't know, like adaptable, reliable and all that stuff. I think it should be the latter though, because why would you put someone as an alternate if they can only do one style, if they're not really like versatile at anything, they don't have great stage presence? You want an alternate that can do everything and is the whole package. I think the way that Amanda and Michelle did it in season 3 was my favourite for alternates. Like, they learnt specific parts that each dancer did, so that if one of them happened to fall ill or got injured, they could step in. So they had like a list each of the people that they would be filling in for. I think that was a very like initiative worthy thing to do.
Michelle's better for this one. When Michelle and I became alternates, we decided that we would each be responsible for 5 dancers, and Wes was one of hers.
So in terms of the alternate auditions themselves, I do think it should have been split into 3 rounds instead of just solo and then group choreo. I think that because an alternate needs to be versatile and be able to step in to anyone's shoes and do any kind of dance that they've got and they need them for, they should have had 3 different dance styles so that they could see what they can do. I think they should have done like contemporary lyrical with Summer, and then either with Kenzie or Rochelle have a hip hop or an acro routine. So every dance captain nominee got a dance style that they taught all of the alternates, because I think also that would have given a good example of how they can handle a large amount of people, because obviously the dance captain has to handle all 12 of the dancers effectively. It's not just going to be 4 at one time. So I think this would have been a lot better in terms of evaluating everyone's skills, the dance captain and the alternate. But if that was the setup, like we had an acro, a hip hop and a contemporary audition effectively, I do think that Henry would have been a better fit than maybe Kenzie. I just think, I don't know, I think Henry would have dance captain capabilities, and I think especially because Noah was the last dance captain and he was the first male dance captain, it would have been nice if another male had the chance to step up and try for dance captain. So I would have liked it if it was Henry, Rochelle probably, because she wouldn't have taken no for an answer of being nominated, and then Summer. And also that way we could have Henry doing hip hop, Rochelle doing acro and Summer doing contemporary lyrical. So I'm going to be ranking these alternate auditions based off what I think a good alternate would be, because Emily and Nick don't really give any guidelines or specifics for what they're looking for. So I'm going to be ranking them in terms of how versatile they are, how quickly they pick up choreography, how confident they are as well, and just their overall demeanour. Like, can they perform well? Are they emoting well? Or are they kind of just dead and blank on screen, stage, performing, you know. I think also initiative and being a smart dancer would be very valued, because ultimately an alternate is going to have to step in at the last minute and be very smart and think on their feet and probably improvise a little bit. So I think that I'd also consider this when choosing the alternate. Things like having good musicality and spatial awareness, those kind of things. So I'm going to go from bottom to top for the solos first of all, and I have looked at both the extended version and the TV version. So in bottom place, I have Jude. I think that Jude lacked energy when she did her solo, and it seemed a little fragmented. Like, it seemed like she was very hesitant to actually start, and it should have been a bit earlier. There was like that slight hesitation and delay there. But I do think she showed her technique well. Like, she did a few great legs, and did she turn? I think she turned as well. She did some leaps, so she has good dance ability. I'm not knocking her for that, but I don't think she was the most confident. It didn't scream, wow, this is something I've never seen before, this is super memorable. So I didn't really get the hype that was like in the talking heads. Like, did someone say that Jude was the best auditionee they had or something? Or I think Kenzie said that she was super strong in her solo. I think Emily says that as well.
She's one of the strongest dancers so far. Jude's freestyle was amazing. I thought she would be such an easy pick for alternate.
I feel like they could have been better suited. Like, oh, we didn't realize that Jude couldn't do choreography because she was smiling all the way through her solo, so we thought that she'd pick this up nice and easy. I just would probably overlook Jude. We then have Grace.
Grace had good stage presence. I really liked her expressions, and her routine was fluid, but it was just jazz essentially, and I found it stayed on one level of energy throughout. She did have some really nice moves in there though, and she showed her technique well.
I don't think that Grace showed much range, but I do think she performed better than Jude did. And then we have Maya. Maya also showed great technical ability when she does her leaps, and she also showed charisma and musicality, but her style was quite limited, but you could kind of tell that she was kind of a blend of contemporary and lyrical and jazz, so that's a little bit more versatile than those beneath her.
Some of her moves did get a little bit repetitive though, especially these little filler type movements. As you can see, they're the same kind of thing after each key move or trick that happens, which dulled the spark a little bit for me. Her expressions, energy and stage presence were great though, and I liked how she staggered her main moves and tricks throughout rather than putting them all at the start.
I then have Marcus. Marcus had great flash from the get-go, which I also think is very good. Memorability is always good. He showed that he could do technical things in jazz, like his leaps and his turns, but I do think he could have maybe pulled up a little bit more in his turns and straightened his supporting leg.
He also had a good range and transitioned well, but this flip wasn't landed the cleanest, so it knocked him down a little, and he also didn't use his face.
I then have Izzy, who I also think had great energy and charisma, but not much on the range. I do think she had more stage presence than those beneath her though, and she kind of looked eager to learn and like she wanted the spot. I feel like other people lacked that also. They kind of lacked looking like they actually want to make the team. It was kind of just like they're performing. Izzy, I feel, looked like she wanted to show her best. I then have Pete. I think that Pete had great charisma and energy, but also he didn't really show much range. You could tell that he's just a one style type dancer for the most part.
He had something special about him though that made him stand out, which is great in an audition, and he had immense energy and facials. He was very likable. Pete didn't even really repeat anything really, and all of his moves were executed cleanly. None of the solos seemed like filler. It was just consistent and it was great.
I then have Cleo. I think Cleo had great musicality and sharp movements, so she caught my eye, which is good.
I liked how she varied her levels, and elements like this turn and the jump and the whacking, even though it's primarily urban, hip-hop commercial, it's varied, and that puts her above Pete and Izzy for me. She also had great expressions and showed that she was enjoying herself.
I then have Presley, because I think Presley danced with ease, and she also had flash and musicality, and she showed her acro as well as jazz, so she was versatile in a sense.
Presley also used the space and her levels really well and threw in complex moves, but she lacked on the facials and charisma for me. I also think she played it quite safe at times.
I have Ethan, because I think Ethan had the great charisma that I was talking about, and the musicality and the technical ability in the style that he did. He showed capability for other styles also. He used his face as well, which is a big thing. He showed jazzier movements, he showed turns, I think he did leaps as well. And I think if Presley had had more face, she would have been level with Ethan. But yeah, Ethan I think just had the full package in what I would look for in an alternate.
The only thing for me though was that it did get a little bit predictable towards the end, and I would have liked him to push harder.
I then have Winnie. Winnie also had great charisma, and I think she showed more of a range than those beneath her and showed her ability really well. So she hinted at things like when she does the little isolation of her head, when she does her steps backwards, she does turn, she does leap.
I think she showed her whole range really well by even throwing in an aerial to start off the solo. The moves may have been better executed by other auditionees, but I really think that Winnie stayed true to herself and showed like everything she could do. First place is
Heath. Heath had insane energy. I'm a big sucker for energy. Heath was very good at his energy and charisma, and also he used the space really well and danced confidently. Like, he danced as if you'd be able to say, Heath, I need you to do this, and he'd do it 100% every single time, which I think is really good.
He also showed range in how he had flips and turns as well as hip hop movements, and the same as I said for Izzy, he looked like he really wanted to make it. I do think he could have been cleaner on some moves, but he achieved the brief really well.
So then we obviously had the Choreo Round, which was led by Summer, Kenzie and Rochelle. They had their own little groups. And, you know, this is where we started to analyse, who would be the best dance captain based off of these interactions with the other alternates. So Summer gave corrections to Presley, which I really liked. It can be hard to give corrections to dancers who are quite full of themselves and think that they are the best dancer in the room. Trust me, I know. It can be very intimidating, and you could feel like, oh god, if I do this then everyone's going to gang up on me and they're going to whisper about me and everything, which they probably do, and you just have to deal with it ultimately, and it gets you down and then you cry about it later. But I'm glad that Summer did that. It showed that she is a good leader and she wanted to get the job done. Basically, she wasn't afraid to tell Presley what she was doing wrong. Kenzie was in charge of Cleo, Pete and Jude, and she took the time to help Jude sort out her directions and the things that she was struggling with, which is very good. But one thing I think should have happened is Emily and Nick should have been watching the dance captains and going around and seeing how they were actually interacting, because like Kenzie was in a whole other room. Emily and Nick have no idea how well she handled it, and from what they saw, it was just Jude messing up the choreo when they actually came to perform. Sorry, spoilers. In the rehearsal, Kenzie was really working with Jude, so I think that would have like worked in her favour a little bit more and they would have been more forgiving. I'm not sure, but I feel like Emily and Nick definitely should have been watching them more and analysing. It just kind of seemed like they were just waiting for the end performances. Then also Rochelle kicked Ozzy out of the rehearsal because he was being disruptive, which is very good. And now that I think about it, I think this was kind of foreshadowing the fact that Summer should have handled Ozzy and Heath's rivalry better. Like, Rochelle was just able to sort it out there and then get him to go out, whereas Summer couldn't do that. So I think that was a little bit of foreshadowing, which is clever. But ultimately, I just don't know why Ozzy was doing that anyway. It was so immature, and yeah, I'm not the biggest Ozzy fan ultimately. But then Rochelle kind of let me down because she didn't allow for her dancers to go on a water break and was like, no, we're going to take selfies with me instead. Also immature. I don't feel like Rochelle would act like that, especially if she really wants dance captain. I feel like she'd be super on it and really trying. So if I rank the alternates that made it through to the choreo round and perform, at the bottom we have Jude again, I'm afraid. Jude didn't pick up the choreo very well. She was slow to pick it up. Obviously she is dyslexic, so that was her reason for it, but it still happened. That is going to be a downfall for her if you're just analysing who is going to be the most competent alternate. Jude ultimately is going to lack in that area of picking choreo up quickly, which is needed in an alternate, so it's a downside for her. She was also very nervous in the performance, and you could tell she didn't exactly cover it well. I think if she had messed up but she kept going with it, it would have been good, and they could have just said, oh, you know, maybe it was just because of the short time she had to learn, but she let it show that she was clearly in the wrong. So yeah, it just wasn't a very strong performance. I think a high pressure environment just isn't good for Jude, and ultimately if you're going to be stepping in for someone at the last minute, it is going to be a high pressure environment. So I don't think auditioning to be an alternate was the best decision for Jude. I think she should have definitely just auditioned to be on B Troupe or auditioned to be on A Troupe. So just a featured dancer rather than someone who has to step into other people's shoes at the last minute. I then have Presley, actually. So when Summer gave Presley her correction, she didn't take it well. She didn't just say, oh, okay, thank you. Even if like she thought in her head, my shoulders aren't slouched or whatever, she could have just said, oh, okay, that's fine, and just carried on the way that she was before and see if Summer picks up on it. But yeah, talking back to the person who's giving you a correction and trying to help you improve isn't good. It doesn't show a good attitude. And yeah, would you really want someone on the team who thinks that highly of themselves that they're not going to take any corrections? Not really. And then when they did the group choreo, Presley did it well and competently, but it didn't scream, wow, Presley's absolutely amazing, she's really made this her own. She had a pretty blank expression. She just did the moves, which is good, but it's not really like, wow. I don't know, I was just underwhelmed basically. We then have Marcus, who I think danced well in both the rehearsal and the performance, so he was just pretty average for me.
But he also didn't use his face at all.
We then have Ethan, who seemed confident in the rehearsal and performed well.
But I don't think the choreo was his strong suit, so it wasn't executed with the same vibe and energy that Izzy and Heath had, in my opinion.
I then have Heath. Heath in rehearsal didn't land one of the jumps that they do, and that's what I picked up on. So it might take him a little bit longer to fit into the role of somebody else. That's what I thought. And also he missed a few of the key accents that were in Rochelle's choreography. And obviously if you are an alternate fitting in for someone else, you need to have every single move nailed. So that is a little bit of a weak area for me. But then in the showcase, I think he was full of energy, really hit the moves and confident. I then have Izzy. The performance, she did really kill it.
She gave 100%, had great stage presence, and she added her own flair to the choreography.
And then I have Pete, who I also think was fine in the rehearsal and in the performance, but he was confident, charismatic, and that had him over everyone beneath him. And then Winnie, who also seemed fine in rehearsal, and in the showcase Winnie was really charismatic and I liked it. I think she had that on Presley, that she kind of emoted more and just had more fun with the routine and looked like she was comfortable and confident with it. She also showed enjoyment, and I feel like she was the leader in the group ultimately, and I feel like out of those people, just at face value, you would probably think, oh, Presley's probably going to be the leader. I think Winnie was the leader ultimately, so she really impressed me actually. But first place I have Cleo, because Cleo danced fine in rehearsal. She seemed to get it all. She was a quick learner. The choreo itself, she hits it really hard, she dances really well, she uses her face, and Cleo just did really well. She impressed me. She really did. So then the dance captain nominees and Nick and Emily were in the office and they were reviewing all the performances that they'd seen, and a lot of things annoyed me about this scene, so we're going to deep dive into that, and then I will tell you who I think the two alternates should have been and also the dance captain. The office was the first time that Nick and Emily had actually spoken to the dance captains properly, and I feel like they should have definitely checked in with them at different points throughout the morning or the afternoon, I don't know when it was, through the process, and just seeing how they were getting on, ask them if they had any issues, if they've resolved anything. Like for example, if Emily had gone down to Kenzie and been like, and saw her working with Jude, that would have been a really good thing for her. And if she asked her, oh, have you had any struggles, and she would have been like, oh yeah, Jude's struggling with her directions, but I'm really helping her, that's great. But Emily didn't see any of that. All she saw was Jude messing up Kenzie's choreo, so it looked badly on Kenzie, like she hadn't taught her correctly. And then Rochelle let me down, because when asked, oh, who do you think should be the alternate, Rochelle was just like, my group, with no explanation. If she had said objectively she actually does think her group, because Izzy hit all of the accents given to her and she was struggling in rehearsal. No, she was quiet in rehearsal, but then she picked it up. Heath was struggling in rehearsal, but then he brought everything together in the end. If she actually given a reason for why she thought her group, then you know what, sure, it's your opinion, Rochelle. But it was just arrogance. It was just like, yeah, my group because I'm the best and I deserve to be dance captain, end of. No thank you. And even Summer annoyed me. I think I expressed this in my other video, but she, like, Emily asks her who she thinks should be the alternate, and she's like, oh, Winnie, because Winnie tried really hard. And Emily's like, and talent wise, and Summer basically says that Winnie has no talent and so does Emily, and I'm like, what? Winnie did so well. I thought she led the little group that Summer choreographed. Her solo was also strong. Like, there was nothing within Winnie that screamed no talent. Like, I feel like it could have been a nice, not nice, but kind of a good story plot if they'd said that about Jude, and then it was later revealed why Jude had struggled so much, and they were kind of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have judged a book by its cover. We deemed Jude talentless because she couldn't perform well and she didn't get the choreography, but actually it was dyslexia all along. That's like a good message, I suppose, not to judge people, but just calling someone out for having no talent for no reason and no story plot and no relevance at all. I just felt like they were so mean, and just like, I just didn't understand it. It's not like Winnie was even bad. If Winnie had just been doing her own thing during the choreo round, then yeah, sure, like you could kind of laugh at it a little bit. But Winnie was good, so yeah, everyone annoyed me basically. Oh no, Kenzie didn't annoy me, did she? Oh, the only thing with Kenzie that I picked up on is that when asked who the alternate should be, she said Jude, when in both rounds, Jude didn't really stand out for me and she wasn't very strong, especially in the choreo round. She messed everything up, so why did Kenzie say Jude would be the most competent as an alternate when she can't pick up choreography very quickly? I feel like, yeah, if you want someone to make the team because you can see they have potential, that's fine. But this is to be an alternate, someone who steps on stage last minute to fill in for somebody else. So why would you choose the person that is struggling to pick up choreography quickly? She did admit though that Jude didn't do well, so I guess it's not like she was just blinded by rose-tinted glasses or anything. I just think it wasn't a good thought process from Kenzie, really. So yeah, basically at the moment none of the dance captains are good. But the alternates that I have chosen based off their performance in the solos and the choreography round
would be Heath, as it is in the episode, and Winnie. And now that I think of it, considering their plot in season 6 and how they are pre-developed characters, I think it would have been a great opportunity to move them up and develop both of them. Heath's plot could have stayed the same as it was in season 7, but I would have loved for Winnie to get a proper plot, like how Cleo did with the whole Nationals versus Dance Mania thing, and then become dance captain of B Troop when the team chooses to go to Dance Mania and she can no longer be the alternate.
I think that they both showed great capabilities for picking up choreography fast, performing a range of styles and being versatile, and they both also seem confident, and I feel like if you put them on stage last minute they would be able to kill it and put it together. They probably have to think about things first, like I'm imagining Winnie would probably have to go over stuff, but then when she steps out on stage she'd just show it on her face that she's enjoying herself and she'd really try her best. So then when it comes down to who should have been dance captain, I don't know, because I don't really think any of them performed superbly or gave perfect answers all the time. But I have to bear in mind that Emily and Nick did not see anything, pretty much, because they should have been walking around the room and checking on everyone, but they didn't. I'm pretty sure. I might have to check through the episode or whatever. But like, they didn't see Rochelle kicking Ozzy out of rehearsal. They also didn't see Rochelle taking selfies and denying her dancers a water break. They didn't see Summer correcting Presley. They didn't see Kenzie working with Jude. So even though I can recognise where they went wrong and the negatives, Emily and Nick don't have any of this. So I'm going to base it purely off of which group performed the best, and obviously show that they had a good teacher. And I think that was Rochelle's group ultimately, because Heath, Izzy and Ethan did really well. So Rochelle would have won dance captain for me purely based off of the group choreo. And honestly, I kind of wish she had got it, but for a better reason than that. I feel like it would have been nice if Rochelle actually came into her own and was like, I know how to be dance captain now because I've seen Noah be a great dance captain. I really tried my best in season 5 and then it was taken away from me. Season 4, I was too arrogant and disciplined and I should have taken into account the dancers' feelings more. So I just think she's grown enough now. She should have gotten it fair and square. So yeah, that is who I think should have been the alternates and the dance captain in season 7 episode 3, and also me ranking the auditions done by the potential alternates in season 7. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and comment down below. Maybe comment who you thought should have been the alternate and the dance captain, and also your rankings or whatever. And make sure you subscribe because I try and upload weekly, and very soon I'm going to be doing an announcement video. So if you're excited for that, make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to know when it goes up. I'm so excited to share it with you. I've been keeping a secret for months. Yeah, I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.